Hey all. Hey all. Okay, so this is going to be a really exciting video because we're actually going to be discussing, of all things, toothpaste. I know, riveting, controversial subject, but when you're a producer for any kind of online content, like especially on YouTube, you have to worry about copyright strikes and everything on any videos. And that means that a certain percentage of your content does need to be as uninvasive on copyright as humanly possible. So, uh, what I'm just going to be discussing is pretty interesting to me anyway, and I hope it's going to be interesting to you. Um, so I actually have some sensory issues. That's one of the reasons why I have the lights as low as I do right now. But anyway, as you can see, I got my bookshelf here, my green screen back here. It's pretty tight quarters. But anyway, point being, I have an aversion when it comes to some sensory things. For a long time, I couldn't drink carbonated drinks like this seltzer here. Lovely. But because it stings your tongue when you're little, or if you're not used to it, or whatever. Or especially if it's very fresh and still fizzing quite heavily. Well, anyway, so there are lots of things that you can do about this over time, just uh, ways to cope. For instance, I learned that if you point a lamp at the wall, it creates that wonderful ambient glow that tends to be a lot softer. And that softer light tends to be easier on the eyes, makes it easier to relax, rest, and everything. Um, so that's been a huge help whenever I've set that up. I first learned that back in college. Um, I just started pointing the lamp at the wall, and I found that I had adequate light for reading and all that kind of stuff. Well, anyway, I very quickly learned um, that just around 2000, as toothpaste kept getting more and more minty, they started including things like mouthwash in the mix and gel and all this other stuff. It very quickly got to a point where it was too minty. Like it was basically like chewing an entire can of Altoids, only you're brushing your teeth with that stuff. And because it's a liquid, you're, well, a paste anyway, but because it's that kind of goop that's now coated all over your mouth, you can't stop the burning. Hence, the the title of this video: "Why is my mouth burning?" or whatever. And I was like, okay, well, what alternatives are there? Like, are there other flavors of toothpaste out there? It turns out that, yeah, you can get strawberry toothpaste for kids, but it ends up costing a pretty large amount of money for a very small amount of toothpaste. And I was like, no, I'm not spending $3 or $4 on a 6-ounce tube of toothpaste. I don't care if it's just toothpaste and I'm only going to use a little of it. I don't want to be spending that much money per ounce. It's a whole volume thing. And I don't just mean the loudness with which I talk. No, it's price per volume, which in personal finance, which I used to teach for adults a couple years ago, is this whole thing. Like, let's say that a 6-piece or a 6-ounce drink at the movies costs $3, which, yeah, that's actually quite a lot for 6 ounces of soda. That's not very much soda. But then let's say that a 12-ounce costs like $4. yeah, you're spending an extra dollar, but uh, for double the amount, but is it really worth that much money to you? Or could you do something different? And a lot of us can just do something different. Like we can like they often won't stop you from having just bottled water. Um, they won't count that as an outside food. I used to work at a Cineplex or something. Uh, when they would consider outside food, you couldn't bring. We would have people go to the Borders nearby, and they would want to bring in coffee from the Borders, and we didn't have a deal with the Borders set up or whatever, and we couldn't let them bring in the coffee. And I was like, I'm sorry, you either have to finish it out here, or you know, but you can't take it into the theater. It's company policy. And I actually hated that policy. I thought it was ridiculous not to let people bring in relative amounts of outside food, like a drink that they had just bought and they couldn't leave in the car. I felt really horrible about it because I had a lot of people come in with coffee from the Borders and they would want to drink it in the movie theater. Anyway, well, the point is, after all that tangent, that the price per volume that you pay for something does matter. So, just looking at that coffee probably ran those people about $5 or $6, whereas getting, a good volume of ground coffee and brewing it at home costs you a lot less. Okay. So, and that large volume of ground coffee costs about the same as that one single cup of coffee. And from that, you can brew a whole lot more coffee with just tap water and a little electricity. But that's kind of what I'm getting at. Sometimes it's not the money you spend on what you're getting. So sometimes it's better to look for a good deal on something that's a better quality value to you. Like you look at the stuff that you need. And in this case, I was looking at toothpastes that were licorice. Those disappeared pretty quickly. I was looking at ones that were strawberry. Uh, those are still around, but they're not a good economic value. The licorice ones are expensive. I tried getting one at an Indian grocery store, and it was a little bit on the pricey side, but more importantly, it did not taste very good. It wasn't mint, but it wasn't pleasant. So wasn't going to go with that. I still have it, but it's like I keep it downstairs, not where I typically do my teeth brushing. Uh, anyway, so I hunted around and I weighed my options and whatnot, and eventually I found uh, a rather interesting product. And I'm just going to show it to you, and I'm going to tell you right now I'm not sponsored, so this is a non-sponsored video. All right, so here it is, close up. Looks like the picture's reversed. I'm sorry about that. I can't really do anything about that right now. Anyway, so close up, as it turns out, is actually an old brand. I thought maybe it would be from, because the name suggests, a relationship with photography, like close up. So here it is, close up. And I did some research on it, and it came out in 1967, produced by Unilever, who are a big company that produces personal body washes, toothpastes, obviously toothpaste. They also produce like all kinds of household cleaners and just all kinds of stuff like that. So Unilever is kind of a competitor to Johnson and Johnson, if I remember correctly. I could be misremembering that. But the point is, they've got like these different types of products. And Close Up was originally marketed with the pitch that it was the first and only, at the time, gel toothpaste. So instead of being the white pasty stuff, this was gel. So it had like a different texture and everything. And as they went on marketing it, I actually looked up some advertisements on YouTube. You can look them up. They're pretty amazing, especially when you get to the 80s. When you have the ones around the late 70s, early 80s, they mostly push it as the toothpaste you use for when you want to kiss that special someone and have your breath fresh all day. And I was like really tripped out because it was so groovy. And I was loving every minute of it because it was like a trip back in time a little bit. But yeah, they were just showing these happy, loving young couples kissing and kissing, and just I was like, oh yeah, that's the stuff. Anyway, so then later in the 80s, and it's important to note that these ads were done just with images and voiceover. And almost every ad that you see for toothpaste, when it comes to Close Up, is done that way. And I'll tell you why in a bit. But the 1980s ad was genuinely astounding because it had some terrible choreography with this woman dressed in the like 80s androgynous look with the baggy tucked in shirt and the big baggy 80s pants that I think had the elastic at the ankles, at the ankle cuffs. And the 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 floofy but short hair that was just giant, and the shoulder pads, I think. And then she was dancing with a couple of guys, and I think the idea was that they didn't mind getting close up, but she just had that smile. Just they clearly cast the people specifically because of the smile, and her face was just like Joker. It was absolutely terrifying. I'm probably going to see it tonight in my dreams. Anyway, so it was really bizarre, and I was more amazed by the terrible choreography, though, where I was like, I don't know if they know just how bad the dancing is, because back in that time it was probably considered really good, and they are white people. But I'm kidding. But that aside, yeah, it was bizarre. But then I looked at some other ads from the same company, and they were like international ads. So there was one that was, okay. Here's where we can kind of broach the subject on Close Up and the international economy. It turns out that Close Up toothpaste, this little unassuming brand that you might have seen or you might barely remember. I know I barely remember them. I would just see them around because how often do you actually buy toothpaste? Anyway, this little brand turns out to be like the number 2 toothpaste in the world, like internationally. I'm not kidding. Apparently, it's the number 2 in a lot of international markets. There was one from Africa where it showed this young couple out at like this nighttime event. I wasn't sure what, and they were out with their friends, and they were attracted to each other. They saw each other from across the room, and they wanted to meet and everything. But there was this veil of water that was almost as sheer and as glass, and because they're using Close-Up toothpaste, they're able to pierce that veil of water and be together. And there was this narration And I think it was from Africa, just given the accent of the narrator. It was in English, but it was done with an accent that sounded a bit more on the West African side of the world. Um, and I only say that because I've been exposed to different styles of English, but it was a very cool and convincing ad. Um, but that particular ad is part of Close Up's appeal internationally. They actually have been able to be this bigger brand abroad simply by tapping into the youth market. I'm not even kidding you. In countries like India, this is the number 2 toothpaste, I think, top selling anyway, simply because they market themselves to young adults. That same ad that you saw that I talked about earlier, where it's just happy white 80s couples kissing all the time. Not interracial couples, not gay couples, just happy white couples, presumably American, but they probably did different voiceovers for it. Okay, they probably did voiceovers for it for Europe, and they probably did the same one with the bad 80s dancing, and they probably did this a different voiceover for Australia and New Zealand. Uh, and it probably just carried on like that. So you get the point. Maybe South Africa. The Philippines ad was one of the most bizarre ones, and you can look it up. It's on YouTube. I'm not going to bother showing it to you because you can just look it up if you're on here. But okay, this young woman is in the nightclub. She goes to the elevator, and it's a nightclub up in a tall building that exists in some city, and she sees a young man on the elevator, and they're both very pale uh, for Asian persons, but whatever. I'm guessing this was for the Filipino market just because they were speaking English. But given that it was in English, it might have also been for an international market. It might have been, I don't know, for Hong Kong. Um, it might have been for a broader market than I'm even considering. But the point is, when she gets on the elevator, he blows on her. There's a few problems with that in so many ways right now. One, given COVID-19, you don't want to be blowing on anyone. Yeah. Two, if you see a girl and you like her, if you see anyone and you like them, don't blow on them. That's not a thing you ever want to do ever, with or without a horrible virus going around. So that ad absolutely stunned me. I actually did blow on a girl once, and it was just because I was stressed, and I used to do diaphragmatic breathing where I would do a deep inhale through my nose and then exhale through my mouth, and I wasn't thinking because I was kind of in an anxious state. Anyway, and I said, I'm sorry. I was just I was trying to breathe and everything. That she asked me why I did that. I was like, I was trying to breathe. I was nervous. Anyway, all right. So what's this stuff actually like? I've gone on and talked about it for quite a bit now, and I haven't told you what it's actually like. Well, it's nice. I actually tried it out a couple of times. First, just on its own, just rubbing it on my teeth and um, with a finger, because you can do that if you don't have a toothbrush. But if you do have a toothbrush, you can use a toothbrush. The second time I used it, I did use a toothbrush, and it was actually really nice. How many times can I say toothbrush? Toothbrush, 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 I can't say it that many times, it turns out. All right. So, given that, It actually has a bright red color. I'll try and show you. Yep, there you go. And I got the toothpaste back in the tube. Take that, you old adage. Anyway, so what else can you say about it? Well, the active ingredient in this, I actually looked at it earlier, is sodium fluoride. And that's basically, um, they actually advertised it back in the 80s as having more fluoride than any other toothpaste on the market. And that was meant to mean a brighter, whiter smile. You gotta love those old ads and just how cheesy they are. Well, you don't have to love them, but you know just how ridiculous they are without knowing it. Um, they're actively trying to sell it. If you ever want to see the most amazing ad, oh my goodness, look up the advertisement for McDonald's DLT. It has Jason Alexander, an entire musical number, and I think it takes place in roughly 30 seconds. You can look it up, but it is the most amazing ad I have ever seen, because in that short span of time, with all that dancing and singing, they have you convinced that lettuce and tomato on a hamburger is the greatest thing since hamburgers themselves. And given after that, I actually did bother to get some tomato and lettuce and put them on a burger that I made at home, and it was actually quite nice. But it wasn't anything where I was doing an entire choreographed musical number about it. All right. So anyway, yeah, I actually found that it didn't burn my mouth, even though it clearly says Ultra Cinnamon Flavor Blast. And I was like, okay, how bad is this going to be? Turns out it's not that bad, and that's a good thing. Another fun aspect that I found about this product was I had to shop all clear all around in order to try and find something. I found this on Walgreens.com. And again, I'm not sponsored. If you want to sponsor me, Walgreens and Close Up, by all means, I will promote your product to and your store to the hills and just let them know all about your wonderful service and all that. But I also got a value size, and this was actually buy two, get one free at the time of purchase. And I was like, okay, so this is going to be really inexpensive. I also used my Walgreens points to buy this. So, and I chose the option to have it delivered to my local Walgreens for free. Right? So I didn't even have to pay for shipping. How cool is that? It was not available in the store. So I went ahead and opted to just have it delivered to the store in a separate package just for me. So I got 3 of these, and I was really delighted that it actually was a pleasant flavor, so it wasn't going to burn my mouth, which was the whole point of looking for another flavor in the first place. And on top of that, it wasn't very expensive. I was able to get this value-sized tube, 3 of them, for not very much, and it ended up not costing me because I used points and I had it delivered for free. So that's how I roll. Anyway, and yeah, it did take a long time to build up those points, but I used coupons to help build up the points, and you take your time with that kind of thing. You don't just go whole hog, go crazy or whatever. You just get little things here and there and build up your points and use coupons and whatnot. Anyway, so what's it actually say on the box? Fluoride protects teeth against cavities. Microfoamers gently clean and whiten. Real mouthwash freshens breath. Confidence to get close up. Close Up has a great tasting sweet cinnamon flavor for confidence to spontaneously get close. Close Up, the taste that heats things up. They really worked on that sales pitch, folks. And that's not bad. You got to admit, if they're trying to sell you on the idea that close up toothpaste will help you have the confidence to get close up to whatever type of person you're attracted to in silhouette, then you will have the confidence and you will be able to get in close and your breath won't stink and you'll be able to get some smooches or something. Anyway, so yeah, it's not a bad product for the money, and it ended up being a surprising find. Uh, I know you can get it at some dollar stores if you want to try it out for that little. Um, but I'm like, well, here in the States it's a value brand, but abroad it's a designer brand. It's actually a desired brand by young people. It's actually the hip, cool uh, brand for young swinging singles. I was just like, wow, that's pretty surprising. Um, but with that said, yeah, so this was a pretty weird little rabbit hole to fall down and do all this kind of investigation on. But if you want to check out ads for Close Up, they're here on YouTube, and they are a laugh and a half, I swear to you. But with that said, if you want to hit like, hit subscribe, ding the bell for future videos to be notified about those. And, keep checking back on the channel. Check out my other videos if you want. If you want to, you can follow me on Facebook. I'm on there as Claudia. And on Twitter, I'm Claudia Reviews. If you really want to support me, I'm on Cash App, Claudia. And I'm also on Patreon if you want to make a more regular contribution. But if you want to make a small one-time contribution, Cash App is perfectly fine. I take, all currencies and whatnot on there because it's just a really easy way to support my work and make it easy on me. No donation is too small. I'm currently having a fundraiser right now to try and help with certain expenses. You'll see what it's about if you click over to my Twitter page. Anyway, so again, thanks for clicking over and take care. Bye-bye.